Welcome to the Psychology Club podcast, brought to you by Vicente Martinez High School.
Welcome to the Psychology Club podcast. Here today we have, Jimena,
Elizabeth,
Brianna,
Elizabeth,
Genesis, and today's special guest is Ali from Find Your Anchor. Ali created the Anchor Box, an amazing tool to help support people struggling with depression, hopelessness, and suicidal thoughts. So we're going to be asking you questions, and you can gladly answer them for us.
So our first question was, what inspired you to make the Anchor Box?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say I'm so grateful to be here. I think what you're doing is incredible and honored to share this space with you. I created Find Your Anchor really out of my own experience in the mental health world. I've known mental health struggles for a long time, and I actually had my first attempt in 8th grade, and my last being when I was 26. So I've known this system well, and just everything that I encountered, all the resources I encountered just felt very clinical and corporate, and just being handed a white pamphlet with 1-800 numbers wasn't really resonating with me. And I figured I wasn't the only one that felt this way. So I'm like, I'm a graphic designer. I'm going to create what I wish I would have had. So it really just started out as my own way of healing. And it's just quickly evolved into something so beyond me. We're all about strangers who care, because in the height of my struggles, my core belief was that nobody would care. And I couldn't feel the love and support that I really was surrounded by. So I was like, if I could create something that showed you that strangers all over the world care about you, maybe it won't be so hard to believe that your friends and family do as well.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should just ask. The next question is, how and when should people use the Anchor Box?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ways to use the box. So one way is we just love to launch the boxes out in the wild for people to find. We've heard from people who found boxes this way that it's almost felt like divine intervention. I was meant to stumble on this box, and we'll launch them in the self-help section of the library, in a coffee shop, on a park bench, on a fish statue in Amsterdam, like truly everywhere and anywhere. Another way is people can request a box. They can come on our website and request a box, and we'll mail it to them, no questions asked. I think it's hard enough to ask for help. The follow-up question shouldn't be, what's your credit card number? So we send the boxes for free to anyone who needs it. And the way we support that is, a third way is partnerships. We partner with schools, organizations, health departments, the San Francisco 49ers, and 100% of all those partnerships goes directly back into funding all the individual requests that we get. And we're really just all about it being a tangible resource, and it being a catalyst for a conversation. And, the boxes are obviously intended for those personally struggling, but we have so many people who reach out and say, my best friend, my sister, my coworker, my neighbor is struggling. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And they'll almost use the box as a catalyst for a conversation, or even an anonymous gift, to just let them know that we're thinking about you.
Yeah, you talked about someone reaching out to people who need help, but what if you're a person who is struggling, but you want to reach out, but you just don't know how because you're embarrassed, or you just never have been in a position like this? Like, how can you reach out to someone?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it can feel hard to reach out sometimes. I think one of the best pieces of advice I heard not too long ago is this group, they're called Bob's Dance Shop. And it's a group of dancers. And we were at this event, and they're like, anytime you're feeling unsure, uneasy, you just need a little confidence boost. He's like, bust out the confidence inhaler and take 2 puffs. And literally that visualization, if I'm like walking into a big speech, I'm pulling out my confidence inhaler, taking 2 puffs, and it's literally then navigating, just then asking for the help. I think a lot of times I got in so much in my head over, what are they going to say? What are they going to think? How are they going to react? And I was fortune telling. I didn't know how they were going to react. I didn't know what they were going to say. But once I finally asked for help, it's almost like letting people surprise you, letting people show up in ways that you would least expect it. And 10 out of 10 times the reactions were better than what I built in my head. So I think it's really just, and also remembering that a pain shared is a pain halved. So not holding on to that and letting other people kind of sit and hold it with you and just walk that with you. And even now, if I'm struggling, I've learned to just say, hey, I'm struggling a little bit today and I could use some extra love. So even in those small ways, just normalizing those types of conversations, and it doesn't have to get until that big point where you're saying, you know, I'm feeling suicidal. It's almost checking in earlier and often.
Okay, my question is, what is your love language to yourself?
Ooh, that's a great one. So we're all about anchors, which we define as the little things in life that bring you joy. So I think it's really surrounding myself with some of my anchors. If I'm having a bad day, I want to come home. I want to take a hot shower, lay on the sofa, order Chinese food, and watch like Princess Diaries. It's not solving my problems, right? But it's something to make you smile, to get you through another night, another 2 hours. And it's finding those little joys to string along, especially when you're in that place. And I think what's cool, and I love that you use love languages, because anchors really can become a love language for knowing what people in your orbit, in your world's anchors are. Even sitting at the table, if you know that Elizabeth's having a bad day, maybe she loves pink Starbursts, and just showing up with a pack of pink Starbursts, and those seemingly small ways, even nonverbal ways to show up or just say, hey, I see that you're struggling. I just want to let you know that I'm here for you. And even when words can seem daunting or hard, just those nonverbal little ways to show up and say, hey, I see you.
I love that. Thank you.
So, hi, I'm Genesis again. Could you give us more insight about how your life is for you now and like after making the anchor box?
Yeah. I mean, my world has just grown in such beautiful ways. I'm the healthiest I've ever been. I've learned when to ask for help, and as I mentioned before, like just reaching out and checking in much earlier and more frequently, almost before things can even get that bad. You know, we have over 89,000 boxes in the world. We're nearing a huge milestone of 100,000 boxes, probably in the spring. And it's just, my world has opened up in ways that I never could have even imagined. And, you know, I never thought my life's work would be suicide prevention. But I can't imagine not doing this. I have such compassion for that younger version of me, and just wanting to get more love into the world in big and small ways. And it's incredibly soul-filling. And, you know, the minute I learned to start seeing joy in those little things, I think it really opened me up to just experiencing even more joy in my everyday life. So really trying to help people start to see those seemingly small things in our lives that can have a profound effect.
Our next question is, when and where were you when you thought of like the idea to create your anchor box?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually a senior at the Art Institute. It was my final project. We had to come up with something that kind of touched on all different types of design. So whether it's packaging design and a logo, or like a poster and things like that. And, you know, mental health, suicide prevention has always been very close to me. And so I knew I wanted to do something in regards to that, and really just kind of thinking through what I wish I would have had. And it evolved into this idea of the box and something tangible. And, you know, it's the graphic designer in me, where print is not dead, and to have something to hold in your hands. And so I came up with this idea, and we only had to do like a logo and a poster and like 2 posters. And I came up with this whole box, and I was like, yeah, but I can't get this done in a week and a half. And my professor was like, sure you can. And just really rolled with it. And over the years, I've added to it. I've shifted some things, I've updated more, but it's really, it was pretty wild because after I made that first box, I launched it back in 2012 at the Gale Borden Library in Elgin, Illinois. And I just agonized over where to launch it and what shelf. And, I put it one at eye level, and I was like, well, I'm shorter than most people, so maybe I should put it up a shelf higher. So then I was like, but then maybe these colors are more on brand on this shelf. Just agonizing over the smallest little details. And I just remember just this voice kind of saying, just trust it, just trust it. And so I put it back on its original shelf, walked away. And a week later, I got an email from a girl that found the box. And she said, when I opened the lid, I just started crying. You must have saved hundreds of lives by now. And it was my first box, the first one in the world. And so that moment really was when I was like, oh, there's something here. And I mean, the rest is history.
Wow. The next question is, how did you come up with the idea to include personal handwritten notes in the box?
Yeah, the handwritten notes are really, I think, a testament to the power of those little things. And I think for me, it's always been about human connection. When I was, in the height of my darkness, I felt so isolated. I felt so alone. And I just remember getting something in the mail, and it looked like it was handwritten. And I was so desperate for human connection that I felt the back of the paper, trying to feel like where someone indented their pen, pressing it to paper. And I remember not feeling any indentation and realizing that it was printed. It was printed to look like someone had written it. And I just remember this kind of like sinking feeling. And it seems, you know, like a heavy reaction, but I was just in a spot where I was so desperate for a connection that small. And so that's really what led to adding the handwritten notes, for just a reminder that there truly are humans writing these notes from all over the world that care about you, and just that power of a human connection and feeling where someone else, put pen to paper.
Thank you.
Okay, so we know to better ourselves, we have to change some lifestyle decisions, help ourselves, and of course have some change. But did you ever reach out for help from others? If so, how'd you reach out?
Yeah, that's another really great question. Honestly, I think I had a hard time for a really long time learning how to ask for help. Um, I warn now of the blank I'm fine, because that was my MO. Someone would ask me how I was doing and I wasn't okay, but I just kind of look at you and be like, I'm fine. And it's almost like I was putting the signs out there for someone to read between the lines. Um, and oftentimes that wasn't happening. And I needed to learn much earlier how to ask for help. And I since have, and that's also in learning how to ask for help earlier, before it gets to that point where you're in crisis, because it's much easier to course correct or adjust. I always say, like, for so long, my head was down. I wasn't kind of taking inventory or checking in with myself. And by the time I finally looked up and took stock of where I was much further down a path that I didn't want to be on. But now, if I'm kind of checking in with myself, like, hey, as I'm walking it's much easier to be like, oh man, this isn't where I want to be, like, back up a few steps and shift. So it's much easier to adjust when you're checking in earlier, as opposed to like it kind of building and growing and deepening. So that's one of the things I would say is really just checking in much earlier.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So looking back at your past, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because I feel a lot of things. I have a lot of compassion for, you know, that young Ali who just was trying her best and really just couldn't feel the love that I really was surrounded by. And that's what breaks my heart the most is I really was surrounded by a lot of love. I just couldn't feel it and I couldn't see it. And that's part of the reason of wanting to remind people that there's people you may never meet, but we still need you here. And we would feel that shift in the world without you. And so I think also remembering and telling myself that this too shall pass, as cliche as that may sound, like these feelings are not forever. And not to diminish the problems that I felt and the struggles that I had in 8th grade, but my world got so much bigger. And it's almost like I was never meant to fit in that small town, in that small high school. Like there was a world so beyond that for me. And having the permission to know that the world gets bigger and that remembering that there's a place for you, and when you find it, you will be celebrated for all that you are. And I just think that I couldn't see that. I was the first in my family to go to college, so also just knowing how much bigger your world can be and having the permission, like I don't have to talk to the people from high school if I don't want to. Like it's relieving yourself of that pressure. I think really just changed my world and grew it in ways that I never knew was possible.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you've done partnerships with the 49ers and other people. Our friend Mackenzie followed you on Instagram and she noticed that you did a boxing building event with the 49ers, and then we looked more into your Instagram. We saw that you have a bunch of partnerships and with them. So we just want to know, like, how did you guys become partners? How long ago were you two partners? And like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, we love the 49ers. We've done a lot of partnerships with a lot of pro sports teams, and there's no team like the San Francisco 49ers. I think top to bottom, that organization leads with love, and we've really seen it. We connected back in like kind of just coming out of COVID, and we were actually connected through our good friend Maya Anista Smith. She's the founding executive director of Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation, and she actually introduced us to them. And we went and did a box building event, and we've since done five box building events with the players, with staff, with a combination of both. George Kittle's never missed one. Fred Warner's never missed one. And it's really cool because they're building the boxes, they're adding their love to it. Some took boxes home for people in their world that they knew needed them, but then they were also writing them for people in the Bay Area who were struggling. And it was cool. One of my favorite pieces of the box building with the Niners is one of the times we had the players write some of their anchors. And I remember one player writing how he was a drummer. And some of his teammates were like, "Man, what do you mean? You don't drum?" And he's like, yes, I do. I've been drumming since I was 5. My dad's a drummer and he's taught me." And it's just like, even just this love language between teammates and ways to bond and learning those seemingly small, again, those joys amongst professional football players was really cool. And, them writing "My golden doodle Cheryl," like it's really cool. It's so humanizing, and it's phenomenal to see like such strong men be so vulnerable and so kind for others. Like that's how we normalize these conversations. If George Kittle and Fred Warner are saying it's okay to not be okay sometimes, like that has ripples that we may never see, but that's how change happens.
Thank you. Those were all the questions we had for you today.
Yeah.
I had a quick question for you guys. I wanted to know, what are some of your anchors? Like what's bringing you joy? Any little things in life?
I can go first.
Yeah.
Um, what brought me joy this year actually, because I was going through a lot this year, like half of this year, but I realized being around like the people that I love, like whether that's like my little dog or like my little baby brother or just my family in general, that I know they will have my back at the end of the day. Just spending time with them makes me feel like protected and just, I don't know, like it makes me happy. So I feel like being around people that make you happy and secure is like the best thing that you can do, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
that's kind of my anchor, yeah.
Yes. Never underestimate the power of a dog.
Yeah.
Something that I like to do is words of affirmation, and just moving my body, going to the gym, going on a walk is something that helped a lot for me.
That's a great
I would say my anchor is making sure that I'm always happy and that everyone around me is always like happy, and that's just kind of like that's just kind of
My anchor is kind of the same. Like I love making sure other people are all right. And yeah.
I think my anchor would be my pets, my dogs. They mean a lot to me, and yeah, I knowing that they're there, like I feel so much love for them, and well, they love me too, so I feel loved when I'm with them. And
Yes.
also like my family, I couldn't do anything without them, so they're the biggest support that I have. So yeah.
Those are great. Those are great. And I always suggest too, like making a list of some of your anchors that you can always refer to, because it's better to list them and know them before you need them. What is it like? Fix the roof before it's raining. Because if you're to ask me, Allie, what brings you joy in the middle of, a depression, I'm gonna be like, get out of my face. Nothing brings me joy. Let me wallow. But knowing and referring to like some of my favorite movies, my favorite songs, like favorite snack, and just being able to reference those. And it's like, oh yeah, I do love that movie. And just again, knowing that it's not going to solve your problems, but it's probably not going to make it worse. So these are great, you guys. I love this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We loved hearing your answers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'd love to send you some boxes to
Yes!
launch.
Oh my God, amazing.
Good. Perfect. You got it.